This first clip will be about a ambush gank. As you can see, there's a New York that's in the channel, and we're going to maneuver close to it, and the idea was to get close to it and torpedo it, but the New York actually puts itself in a really bad position here. So we're going to get very close, and as we get near, it's also good to pay attention, make sure you have an exit strategy, and also pay attention to where you can be spotted here. I get close to this wall so I have more time to get close. And as you can see, he's ridiculously close. So this is a pretty easy torp. The one thing to worry about is that he could actually beach himself here. But he does not, and a successful gank. But we're not out of the woods just yet because we're spotted. This Cleveland goes ahead and beaches himself like an idiot. But he doesn't actually end up being the biggest threat. As you can see, there's another ship here. And my smoke is down, so what I do is I angle myself away from him, showing him as small of a hitbox as possible. And then, well, I wait for my smoke to come back up. Once the smoke comes back up, then we can pop it and get ourselves safe, which I do now. And when you're popping smoke, you have to throttle down or the smoke isn't going to be very thick. If you keep going at full speed, there's going to be gaps in the smoke, you can be spotted and you'll pop out and back into the smoke. Very non-optimal. So the Cleveland can't see me anymore, so I continue shooting it because there's no point not to be shooting. I set him on fire a couple times. And the other Cleveland seems to have extracted himself, and looks like some of our cruisers have done a little bit of damage to him. So another thing you need to do as a US destroyer is find targets of opportunity like this Cleveland, try to finish him off, and doing a very bad job of it, but he's gone.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
This next tactic is an open water rush. It's basically boating in a straight line towards a battleship and trying to torpedo it. You only really want to do this against battleships that don't have any support, like a cruiser or a destroyer nearby, and doing it to a group of battleships is also fairly risky because you'll be taking shots from multiple angles. Here I'm using this rock to approach the Congo. Sometimes you won't have enough cover to get a little bit closer. I pop my engine boost just as I clear the rock, and since I'm spotted, I start opening fire. He's already on fire, but it's really useful to light the enemy on fire as you're approaching them with your guns. You want to make sure that you're angled directly towards him, and then after the battleship fires its guns, you can open up your broadside a little bit again and to bring more of your guns to bear. And then once you get close enough, you need to launch torpedoes. I wouldn't really get any closer than 3 kilometers. And there you go. It's a little risky. As you can see, I took a lot of damage. Here is another open water rush, this time on a Fuso. And this time, this is a failed rush. There's 2 battleships here, but that's not the main problem. The main problem is I'm low on HP, and I don't have any cover to make this rush. I also open fire before I'm in any range to be spotted, so he has more time to react to me. I do keep myself angled towards him, but battleships, even if they strike you with AP, still do over-penetrations. And over-penetrations is 10% of the amount of damage the shell would have done to you. And as you can see, that's plenty to kill me. Here's another type of ambush gank. This one is around a corner. This one's a little bit less accurate because the target doesn't actually have to take the corner at the speed you want them to. But I can just set up a smoke here, which I do, and I've loaded AP because it's a Pensacola. But he does take the torps anyways. If he hadn't, then I could have just shot AP while concealed in the smoke. Here we're about to engage some destroyers. There's not much that really can be said regarding tactics against destroyers. You have to practice shooting them and getting the lead right. You also have to bear in mind that when you knock out engines, you'll have to aim a little bit shorter. Also, angling yourself towards the destroyer is typically a good idea in order to dodge their torpedoes. You can also angle yourself directly away. When launching torpedoes against other destroyers, don't waste time, especially in a US destroyer. You don't have the luxury of setting up torpedo runs. You need to be shooting your guns. In this case, these two destroyers show me their broadsides, eat torpedoes and shells. Not a very difficult fight there. Now we have a New York over there that's isolated, so this is a good opportunity to try an open water rush on him. The only problem is I'm low on HP. So we're going to speed up things, get a little bit closer to him. I do have smoke, so that makes this a little bit safer. You can add smoke to your open water rush, generally as an exit strategy if the battleship does what a battleship should be doing when they're getting rushed by a destroyer and turn away from you. So, well, this is going to be a lot of shooting. A good tactic to use when you're shooting at a target, especially a big one like a battleship, is to spread your shots along the bow and the stern of the ship, as if you focus your fire one part of the ship too much, it's going to start taking reduced damage. It's just how damage works in World of Warships. Also, if you get a fire on a certain part of a ship, it's not very good to keep shooting that part, as you're going to lose potential fires you could be setting. And now there's a Minikaze out of nowhere, so I decide enough of this is enough. I'm going to pop smoke. Throttle down, of course. I launch torpedoes, but at this range they're very likely to miss, or they're going to fizzle out before they even get to the target. And just keep shooting. Move forward slowly while your smoke is still setting. Then once it's done setting, go into reverse to pull yourself back into the smoke cloud. Make sure you angle your ship so that you bring all your guns to bear. You want to move a little bit while you're in the smoke so that any cruisers or battleships that see you, they don't track your position from where your shells are flying from and put shells right on top of you even though you're concealed. And I'm basically just gonna burn this battleship to death. But the battleship can't really do anything to me because he can't see me. For this last clip, I'll be using the Fubuki. It's not a US destroyer, but there's a lot of tactics that you learn in US destroyers that can be applied to Japanese destroyers as well. Here I'm setting a smoke screen. I'm inching forward at a quarter throttle, and I'm doing so because there's dive bombers above me and there's 2 cruisers nearby. You'll have to ignore some of the torpedo hits I get. I'm in a Fubuki after all. But I'm going to be firing HE at this Cleveland. You can use AP if you want, but the Cleveland has a difficult citadel to hit. If it's basically any other cruiser, I would be shooting AP at this range. And basically, since I'm boxed in and I can't really get out of my smoke here, I'm just going to spend as much time as possible, deal as much damage as possible. I'm going to maneuver a little bit so I can get a better angle for my torpedoes. This isn't quite as applicable for US destroyers because sometimes they won't have long enough range torpedoes, especially if you're using one like the Mahan or the Farragut. But basically just shoot as much as possible, do as much damage as possible, and make sure you're paying attention to your surroundings. Here I stopped paying attention to that Cleveland because I noticed the Otago. The Otago I can actually citadel if he gets a little closer and turns a little bit more broadside. Unfortunately my smoke is about to run out, so you do have to pay attention to the duration of your smoke. I'm waiting for myself to show up as detected again, which should be very soon. I think it happens right about now. Then I start loading AP after the next shot, and I'm gonna aim at the water line and hope for citadel hits. I believe the Cleveland has died. I don't recall because I was tunnel visioning too hard. But I hear the penetration sound, which means that I'm actually penning the Otago, so the next shot should be a citadel. And I get 4 citadel hits. Not enough to finish him off, but fortunately there's cruiser backup arriving that finish off the Otago. You want to aim for citadel hits against cruisers. It's your big equalizer against them.